Hello, welcome back to Podcasting is Praxis. We're still here. David is here, but yet not here. That's why you're not hearing him do the introduction. But otherwise, hello, my name is Rob. My pronouns are he and him.
My name is Alistair. My pronouns are he and him.
I'm David. My pronouns are he and him.
I'm Jamie. My pronouns are he and him.
And today we're very happy to be joined by Juliet Jacques. Juliet, how are you? Thank you so much for joining.
I'm fine. Thanks for having me.
We've had a very distressing start to this episode already.
Yes.
Yeah. Rob introduced the guest in a way that didn't let them do pronouns.
Yeah, my pronouns are she and her. I did a whole Guardian series about that, man.
You can't expect
my
our
pronouns
listeners
are
to
a
have
matter
read.
of public record.
Yeah, who reads
all
the
right.
Guardian though?
Yeah, no one anymore.
I mean, if you want to, you can still go to the Guardian and read it. Juliet, do you still get residual money or something for it if more people end up clicking and reading it?
Oh God, absolutely not. No.
Oh, fuck them then.
Fuck them then, yeah.
Well, fuck 'em. Just the emotional satisfaction of having your work seen and understood out there in the world.
Yeah, I don't think they're having me back. So not after this podcast.
I mean, following in the footsteps of giants like Dawn Foster is no mean feat, I don't think.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. I mean, look, Catherine Viner, we know you listen to every episode. Book Juliet, get her to do more stuff. So let's
More people should call Tom Watson a cunt in The Guardian, to be honest.
And just generally, to be honest, yeah.
So we'll do the usual thing. We have some nuggets and then sort of a main topic that I've been sort of thinking over whilst on my holiday communing with the mountain and forest gods, and then I have some commentary at. So in a way, it's a traditional episode as well. We get all the greatest hits. But I wanted to start with a great little piece that I read today in the Financial Times by Mara.
Is this about Keir Starmer doesn't believe children should have agency?
No, it's not about Keir Starmer. That was Mumsnet, wasn't it?
Yeah, Mumsnet, the Financial Times. What's the difference?
Have I just come on this show to just cycle through a list of transphobic publications?
We are talking about
no.
British media, so...
I was going to say that's basically every week on this island.
No, this is specifically, Jamie, I already sent you a little bit of this before the show started. This is about the Bitcoin string. Ethereum has moved a little while ago from...
The Bitcoin string?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm losing my fucking mind.
Yeah, put your app on the block string.
Ethereum is distinct from Bitcoin.
Yes. Well, Ethereum has moved to a different way of computing who has what values and who has what coins and how transactions are recorded, which takes a lot less energy, basically. That's the very simple thing of it.
They've gone from proof of work to proof of stake, which basically means you have to put in a lot of money to be able to say this is a legitimate transaction, rather than saying I've burned this many thousands of tons of CO2 or released this many thousands of tons of CO2, therefore this transaction is real.
Yes, exactly. It's a far superior system that doesn't have any problems at all. But it does have a sort of an interesting side point to it, which is you used to burn through a lot of graphics cards and computing power to do the calculations, as Alistair was talking about. But now that's no longer necessary, at least for Ethereum, that means that there's a ton of miners and investors out there with huge chunks of useless graphics cards that they were using to do the computing power. Now, some of the really big Ethereum miners used to think they can repurpose them now for AI or cloud computing or gaming in some manner.
Why can't they just do something good with them, just give them away to people?
Do you know what?
Card.
It's a real shame, because this would have been a great starting point for a left-wing version of something akin to Gamergate, where rather than just eviscerating every woman who's decided to be in games-related media, we could do something like
encouraging introspection from
everyone who's ever decided to create a Bitcoin. so that we can actually have graphics cards for normal people rather than freaks.
Actually, about ethics in graphics cards.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to get into, because this is the bit that I wanted to talk about. So, like, you have the huge institutional players who have like big money behind them, but there's also like a whole bunch of people who have like smaller rigs or had them for creating more Ethereum. So they're essentially much smaller. And what are they going to do? So I just want to read you a little bit from the article. Chris Kyle, director of marketing at a mutualized Bitcoin mining group, crypto mining group, is planning to
Never
use
trust anyone with two first names. Just straight up.
Never trust American Sniper is what I was going to say. Is planning to use his 86 GPUs to heat his Vancouver home. The units are roughly the size of... The units are roughly the size of a computer keyboard, and the graphic card temperature ranges are between 40 Celsius and 90 Celsius. He said, now that it's getting old, I'm going to turn them all back on. All the energy you put in just gets turned into heat, so it makes sense to just run my GPUs instead of turning the heating on.
Oh my fucking god.
What could possibly go wrong with that?
Remember that when Bitcoin...
Sounds like a real energy crisis.
Hey, remember when Bitcoin mining first caught on and that one guy on like something awful gave himself brain damage from heat stroke?
Yeah.
Was that the same or a different guy than the one who decided to dry fruit on the most disgusting looking drying rack I've ever seen in my life?
I'm gonna say I don't know, but I'm gonna say it's the same guy.
Were all of these guys low tax Kianka, R.I.P.
Using the heat from his mining rig to bake like luxury cookies.
The crucial point was that he wasn't baking them.
But yeah, I like the idea of somebody looking at like a whole set of like GPUs and like graphic rigs and just like staring at and just going, could also be a slow cooker. I really like the idea of that.
You know what I love to do? I love to look at something that takes 700 watts of energy and then converts into like 50 watts of heating energy.
Yeah, it's very efficient, and also like energy prices and electricity prices, I'm assuming, are not in any way related, so there won't be a problem there whatsoever.
Yeah, no. I mean, you could put your heating on, or you could put this on, and the choice is easy because his heating doesn't like stream porn in 8K at the same time. So
yeah, because you really want to be able to see every follicle, don't you?
Others are waiting for a pickup in prices. John Hartwig, a manufacturing engineer from Iowa, spends his evenings and weekends dusting and checking the wiring of his 600 GPUs.
Fuck off.
Yeah. A lot of miners are holding on to their gear. I'm going to sit on it and wait for the next thing that comes along. Any day now, I'm sure.
The next thing that comes along is going to be those 600 graphics cards collapsing on top of him and him just slowly starving to death in his house.
His house must look like a fucking Necron crypt.
In thousands of years, soon they'll have no idea why they're dusting these machines, but soon.
Yeah, it'll be like the Adeptus Mechanicus. They'll just be applying the sacred oils to the GPU for like for reasons even they don't understand anymore.
But hey, look all the dried fruit that they're getting.
What's this, mangosteen?
Finally, the prophecy comes true. The spineless star child is born.
Bring fucking low tax back as one of the those fucking robots. I can't remember what they're called.
Servitors.
Well, speaking of bringing low tax back, let us before we do to like the main story and stuff as well, briefly talk about the goings on.
Something awfulification of Twitter.com.
Yes, exactly. So we're now in the reign of Chief Twit Elon Musk, as he has so graciously styled himself.
Yeah, love to spend $45 billion fucking it.
Yeah. I think that's a price worth paying in order to kill that fucking website, quite frankly.
Oh, I mean, it's certainly a price I'm happy for him to pay.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there's been some really incredible doings, and I think it's definitely part of that. He didn't want to buy it first. He tried to get out of buying it, and then they made him buy it in the end. So now, like, he's just kind of winging it, or just thinking that, like, I've been a genius everywhere else, citation needed, and therefore this will work out too. So the most amazing thing...
Wasn't the price he paid for it like a kind of in-joke from somewhere? Where was it from? The 44 billion... The number is an in-joke, right? Off, like, 4chan or something.
I think it was this not the wanting the share price or something for Tesla to be like $420
inflated
or something?
It to $420,
yeah,
that was
the weed number. Hey.
Yeah, that was the thing that got him into trouble.
The share price for Twitter that he agreed to buy it at might also have been a meme. I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, it's fucking great because it is yet further confirmation, like first given to us by Twitter that like every celebrity and rich person that you know is actually a fucking moron. But it's also like doubly satisfying because this dude is doing like Reddit tier jokes from 2012 still in 2022. Did you see the fucking cringe joke he did when the day that he officially became like CEO or owner or whatever?
Oh, is this when he brought the sink in?
Yeah, the fucking sink.
Yeah. But it became even more incredible, like, I think today or yesterday as of recording, so Tuesday the 1st of November, this is via Casey Newton. He said he asked for all the coders employed by Twitter to print out the last 50 pages worth of code they'd written in the last month, so they'd had to show that to him personally. Because like he calls himself like a bit of a code guy, so he just wanted to show that people were working hard by just printing out code.
Didn't he then just like throw it all in the bin like a teacher who's just giving you lines?
No.
I think someone pointed out that like printing out the fucking proprietary code and just leaving it lying around was like a total fucking waste of time and effort, and so everyone had to shred it.
I think it was also not just a total waste of time and effort, but also a huge security risk.
Well, it gets even better. This is from Matt Levine's newsletter Money Stuff, which if you're not subscribing to, you should. It's good. In mid-afternoon, the instruction changed again. A notice went out to employees ordering to cease printing out their code, for reasons that were not immediately clear. Update. Stop printing, read another bolded notice obtained by Platformer. Please be ready to show your recent code within 30 to 60 days on your computer. If you have already printed, please shred them in the bins provided on the 10th floor. Which is just
incredible.
It's fucking incredible.
You might not like it, but that's what peak efficiency looks like.
Well, I mean, peak efficiency...
my favorite thing he's done so far is word went round they were going to charge like 20 quid a month for a blue tick.
Getting a blue tick. Or keeping your blue tick as well.
Oh, well, yeah, but obviously once it was 20 quid, you'd be able to pay for one and pretend you're the FBI or whatever. But everyone was like, $20? That's ridiculous. And Stephen King tweeted that $20 was ridiculous. And Elon Musk went, well, what about $8? And now it's $8 because like... fucking President Deals is in the house.
Do you think we can all coordinate to argue him back up?
No, look, we've been through this on this podcast before. The way to save the fucking toilet website of Twitter.com is to allow people to customize other people's bios for the princely sum of $10.
Yeah. That
maybe even change their avatar. I'm still not decided on that one, but.
Yeah, copyright, by the way. Very much copyright. Elon, if you're listening to this, you have to make a deal with us first.
Yeah.
Maybe they could use the same...
don't let Stephen King know, because like we want the full $20 this time.
Maybe Twitter can use the same security software that the Tories used for their conference a few years ago, and you can just like stick in a very obvious guess at somebody's email, then just go in and just like change all of their details. Like...
Yeah.
And given how many cutbacks Twitter are going to have to make, they'll probably end up doing that. So, you know.
I was just going to say they've fired like a whole bunch of people already, and the people who are making this like pay for a blue tick system, they've got a week or they get fired as well. So he's gonna be down like money saving to the point where they just get some absolute dipshits in, because the criteria for getting a job at like Twitter as a coder isn't going to be are you any good at code? It's going to be, do you like post dank pepes in Elon Musk's replies or something? So it's only a matter of time before the entire fucking site implodes.
I'm so it's Jamie, but yeah. Go on, Juliet.
So it's basically like Dominic Cummings' plans for the Home Office, like finally coming to fruition. Civil service, even, yeah.
I was going to say, like look at the history of the way Elon treats every employee, whether it's at SpaceX or Tesla. Like the only people that are going to be left after he's been at Twitter for any length of time are only going to be the guys putting the pepes in his replies on Twitter, like the true believer types.
Yeah.
Because like he just goes from company to to business sector to business sector, just treating every employee like absolute hot shit, and then just being like nonplussed when they all quit.
Again, much like something awful.
just wait until his big scheme for like retaining users on Twitter is to buy everyone a horse so they won't leave him.
Although apparently one of the things that's being considered to sort of increase the user base, or at least keep users going, is he's been instructing Twitter engineers to see if they can resurrect Vine, that was killed off in 2016. I've never been on Vine. I have no idea what it is, but like
Vine was you could make 10-second. I think it were 10-second videos.
It's TikTok but shorter. It
was the basically Twitter for videos, right? You could make a video, but it had to be like 10 seconds or less. And Twitter bought it because it was hugely popular. They bought it, and all the people on it who were like making these videos that were getting like millions and millions of views, like went, well, shouldn't we be getting paid for some of this money, like some of this money that we're making you? And Twitter just went no and closed the whole fucking thing down.
I mean, that is interesting.
I think Elon Musk resurrecting it is definitely going to go well for Elon Musk.
Well, I mean, that is sort of an interesting point about Twitter in general, that like if you get a lot of fans on like Instagram or something, like Instagram will pay you out. Facebook, I think, as well. YouTube definitely does. And it's like if you have like a cajillion followers on Twitter, it's just like, you are still the product.
Yeah,
that is pretty incredible.
That's been one of the highlights of this week, is seeing people with blue ticks going, well, we're not paying for a blue tick. We should be paid for the content we provide. And it's like, fuck off. Like,
for my fucking queue.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea how many accounts Jamie's been through?
Yeah, I should be getting a check for testing their fucking systems.
Yeah, I mean, Juliet, if they paid you, would you come like make a triumphant return back to your account, or would you still run far and fast away? How much would Elon need to pay you to like convert to posting?
I think if he took away all the blue ticks on the site, I'd come back for free.
That would be a fucking incredible day on Twitter,
wouldn't it?
Do you remember the day they made it so that blue ticks couldn't post?
Yes. Yes. It was so good.
Sorry, Nate Bethay and Hussein Ghazvani, like all the other shitters are gone now.
Tristan Cross, sorry mate. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you want to
every good thing has a little bit of collateral damage. We just have to live with that.
If you want to make an omelette, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's like they always say, you can't make an omelette without a little bit of collateral damage.
Spoken like a true US Secretary of Defense.
Anyway, briefly returning to the real world before the main story, something that we've been talking about on and off for God knows how many episodes now, but I'm pleased to report that Bulb Energy is no longer in the fine hands of the state.
For fuck's sake. Sorry, carry on, Rob.
Well, I mean, it only cost the state about like £4 billion, which, by the way, is the biggest bailout since RBS in 2008.
You could have had like 9% of Twitter for that.
Yeah, exactly. like 1.5 million customers are now being shunted on from the failed bulb are now being shunted formally to Octopus. But don't worry about it. Like it's not going to impact the state too much because you will all be paying for it. About £150 per household bill will be added due to the rules that allows the energy sector to like literally shove bailouts onto the shoulders of existing customers across the sector, which is fucking incredible.
Yeah, that's cool.
I mean, energy, gas, it's really cheap anyway this winter. So what's 150 among friends, right? Like we can all just go along to get along, I think.
Yeah. See, the thing where British Gas is supposedly going to start giving people £100 a month if they run their washing machine in the middle of the night.
What?
Like instead of doing it during the day, it'll help prevent blackouts if you just live at night.
I can do that.
You just become a Dracula, and I'm just like I'm sat here going like I've trained my entire life for this. This is my £100.
Jamie's going to be raking it in at this rate.
Yeah.
I was going to say,
they're going to be telling people to go goblin mode, and then Jamie's going to be like, "Oh, once again, my time to shine."
I'll be hosting the next series of The Apprentice.
I would pay so much money for that season. You have no idea. That'd be so fucking incredible. Yeah, I mean, if Catherine Viner's listening, I'm sure the Director General of the BBC is also tuning in. Give us The Apprentice. Like, nobody likes Alan Sugar anymore.
Yeah.
Put him out of
new
his misery.
New catchphrase instead of "you're fired." It's "I don't give a fuck. Do what you want."
Now get out of my office.
Yeah.
I think just "get out of my office" is a good catchphrase. Monty Burns
My new catchphrase is the sound of Wii Sports being played behind the desk.
It'll essentially be just like the five of us sitting in office, batting around a big ball of string like a bunch of cats, while some prick in a tie tries to persuade us as a business genius.
Yeah.
We'll be fucked the day someone decides to bring in a fucking key ring.
bunch of yuppies just like setting each other on fire out in the lobby.
Sort of self-immolating, like the guys from the Prague Spring.
I like the idea that every season it's just the same winner. It's whoever's smart enough to just like bring a laser pen in, so the five was just chasing.
A desk chair, but the supporting column is also a scratching post.
Anyway, BBC, call us if you need new ideas. Hey, they cancelled Mock the Week anyway. There's also a comedy slot coming up, so
Well, they've cancelled.
Give us an hour slot a week, you cowards.
They've also cancelled Spitting Image, guys. How are we going to cope?
Oh shit!
Very well, actually.
Yeah, my puppets have been sleeping soundly ever since.
So did Dara O'Brien just pass his sell-by date or something? Like, why they cancelled Mock the Week?
He's taken up full-time sponsorship by the Megabus company.
He's got greyhounds to
nurture tenderly.
Well, I mean, he is on this season of Taskmaster, so that he might have just preferred to do that rather than another series of Mock the Week. Which,
I mean, to be fair, being on Taskmaster is better than the entirety of Mock the Week.
Yes,
listener, if you're seeing the tweet for this episode on Twitter, can you please @ Dara O'Brien in the comments?
Yeah. Well, everyone atted my Corbyn and comedy article for Red Pepper at Dara O'Brien. He got very upset. So yeah. he was practically asking for my address.
Should give me
James.
Yeah. Is that the level when he powers up beyond? Is this not getting a bit boring now?
To be fair, Dara O'Brien is like the fucking Beetlejuice of Twitter. If you @ him 3 times, he'll just appear in your mentions.
That's his entire playbook. He's got reverse psychology and then
coming to your house to hug you.
Once again, we come full circle back to low tax Gianca. This is going to be one hell of an insider episode.
At least low tax euthanized himself.
Rest in peace.
Oh my god!
You do in fact
Juliet...
have to hand it to him.
It's Juliet's fault we've been set off down this path today.
Yeah, and I never even posted on something awful. I think I'm the only person here who never used it.
Well, you've got more sense than the rest of us, quite clearly.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, she's off Twitter, so yeah, I think that's pretty apparent.
If you're off Twitter and you were never on something awful, where do you go to get mad at video games?
YouTube comment sections, obviously.
Old issues of Zap 64. Yeah. Keeping it analog.
Going through the letters page of Amiga Power with a Sharpie.
Calling Stuart N. Hardy a dickhead, yeah.
Pursuing a vendetta against Charlie Brooker way past its fucking deadline.
Well, you know, like Stuart Campbell, who wrote a lot for Amiga Power, is now the Wings Over Scotland guy, right?
Yeah.
Like, I spent most of my teenage years on Sensible World of Soccer that he worked on, and, you know, never have a hero. That's all I'm saying.
I can remember his interwar period between like the fall of Amiga Power and the rise of like his mad Wings Over Scotland shit, where he was waging a one-man crusade against a guy who'd copied a Sensible Software train spotting game in BASIC.
I really hope that you were going to...
Someone note down that use of interwar period.
The lost generation of games journalism.
While you were like hanging out in Paris with Picasso,
Just cut off my entire head.
All right, this is going swimmingly. I'm trying to pitch into the main topic, but there's no fucking bridge out of this.
It feels like someone's brought a dog onto the podcast tonight.
I haven't slept. That's the problem.
All right, should we try to bridge into the main topic, or do you want to just keep riffing?
Let's go.
Like, honestly, we can do. Do that
let's get into the main topic because I've seen how much fucking notes you've done.
It's all right. It's like a harmless...
This is positively restrained.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, if this is too much already for you, then, you know, why don't you come back next week, coward?
Come back next week and meet me in the Tesco car park, you prick.
Who is standing outside our house screaming podcast now? Wow, and with that, I've officially killed the comedy. All right, that's great.
You're like Matt. You're like the Matt Ford of the podcast. You know.
Very harsh.
Yeah,
very
sorry.
harsh.
That is brutal. Sorry,
underpaid in that. Like
you've absolutely fucking done him there.
Yeah,
Rob
muffled sound there. That was a puppet.
Yeah, I have to hand over my podcasting badge and gun. It's true. Like,
and your puppets of the entire Podcasting as Praxis crew.
I take them with me on holiday, and then, you know, my fiance threatens to dump me when I'm like, and then what does Jamie say?
I would pay money to hear you trying to do my accent on Spitting Image, quite frankly.
You'd manage better than Matt Ford would do, so yeah.
I think I would manage to be less offensive, though. I think I can give myself that. Like, maybe more offensive by accident, but not by design.
I mean, it wasn't so much that it was. I mean, the Jess Phillips bit was obviously like gross. But like, it was just gross in terms of pure art, if you ask me. Just
all I remember of that fucking show is the five of us watching
No,
literally 5 minutes.
Don't say five of us, because someone had sense.
I'm pretty sure I've not really watched much of it either.
No, we tried to watch it for the podcast to see if it was if it was worth doing, and I think we all after
watched,
5 minutes
the first
was
episode.
too shit.
Yeah, we watched the first episode and just realised how fucking woeful it was, to the point of there is no comedy to extract from this.
Ironically.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not me, though. I think I was playing City of Heroes or something.
All right. Let's just cut into the main topic, because otherwise I'm going to try to keep doing comedy, and Christ, we've just seen where that leads.
Yeah, thank you.
We should have, if you'd have just been pod dad in the first place, none of this would have happened, David.
If you'd never gone out to get those cigarettes, we wouldn't be here right
now. Essentially, I was doing a little bit of Twitter with Juliet last week, and then I'd been thinking about this stuff for a little bit longer whilst I was away on one of my many holidays, and essentially I think, so this is sort of like a broad generalized theory of which I may be completely wrong, because I normally am when I try to do this stuff, so forgive me up front. But I do think that if you look at the UK at the moment and some broader trends, we are at the end of an era. I think for me it's mainly related to free money, but I'm very interested in sort of what has gone on in the last couple of years and essentially what comes next. And it certainly in terms of British politics, the first step seems to be we don't need that silly democracy anymore. It's time for the grownups to be in charge.
The next step is a lot like that bit where the guy in Chernobyl has to look into the reactor core.
Yes. So I thought today we'd look this is not a bad way of going about it, actually. Today we should spend some time, and also why, among other reasons, why Juliet is here to sort of gather around the bonfire and stare into the reactor core together. For me, I think it starts, like I said, with the end of free money, of essentially the central banks just underwriting whatever it is we want, and money being essentially free, which has already or is in the process of killing off stuff like crypto and NFTs. We've talked about that in other episodes, and I think a lot of others that sort of float on that same pool of infinite money. Let's see if this bet pays off. Grocery delivery apps, stuff like Getter and stuff is dying. Food delivery apps are also in huge fucking trouble. Uber is in trouble. Those little electric scooter companies, they're all in fucking trouble. And I think seemingly what seems to be related to me, but I'm not 100% sure of it yet, is I don't know if who's been paying attention, I'm assuming I'm the only neurotic one who does, but last week the valuation of the big tech companies was they nearly $1 trillion was wiped off their value.
Good.
Google.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying
I actually did keep up with that, and it was very funny.
Yes. I mean, we've had just over a decade's worth of governments being able to essentially do whatever, they could spend as much money as they wanted and essentially have negative interest rates for large portions of that. And what have we got to show for it? Fucking Meta and VR, Second Life or Third Life, because it's in the third dimension. You see, that's it. That's what we've got.
Yeah,
legs.
Legs are coming.
And the best part about that was they had to fake the legs for that video. They didn't have the technology.
Artist rendition.
Yeah.
This is what we imagined legs might look like.
Yeah, dramatization just written across the bottom of the video.
May not have happened.
Someone's finally gotten around to explaining the lower half of human anatomy to Mark Zuckerberg.
Oh.
Just getting in the special effects guys behind Walking with Dinosaurs and asking them to do trainers.
Drawing the Vitruvian Man as waking up from the Matrix. But yeah, I mean, that is a nice example because, like, we talked about it, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago. Like, Meta's been hemorrhaging cash on the Infinity Worlds thing, on the metaverse. It's almost 10 billion a quarter now. And in the last, like, corporate statements, Mark Zuckerberg has said, no, we're doubling down on this. We are giving even more money to him, to this weird project, which is incredible.
And Elon Musk saw that fiasco and went, me too.
Elon Musk would rather people didn't go me too, I reckon.
But yeah, like it's the stuff like Netflix that they're saying, oh, well, we're going to bring in ads because obviously there's no more infinity money to buy, another stupid show. And even that was the interesting thing to me because I think that's where we get into like the more real economy thing of it. Even Amazon is projecting either a slow or like they have no idea what their revenue is going to be next quarter anymore because of like the rise in everything prices essentially. So they say our profits could be between 0 and 5 billion for the next quarter, but it could be 0 because from the Financial Times, consumers have burnt through their savings, according to the chief executive of a big e-commerce management platform. And I think that's
I'm always burning through my savings. Famous for it.
But I do think that that's like a really like important part of this is like we had a decade's worth of free money and all we got for it was like fake legs, but like nobody's been able to like build or rebuild any savings or get like a decent job out of it. We've just like gotten really shit treats that were incredibly expensive and could have been provided a lot cheaper.
That's because it's been free money for me but not for thee. Like it's never made its way out of big fucking venture capital firms and banks and shit like that.
I'm not entirely sure because I do think that like in the direct sense you're right, but like in the indirect sense of like where does the money then flow into and how does it go about it? To me, like in my thinking, I think that free money was probably, certainly in terms of the UK, like the only artificial sticking plaster left in like the sort of cracks in the foundation of the UK that were already present, but have just like gotten bigger in terms of like the long-term fuck-ups, like COVID, Brexit as well. Like I don't want to be Romania, but like there are like slowly growing, but bigger and bigger problems in terms of like the UK as a UK PLC, the business side of the country. And like I think a lot of that was sort of already building and like getting worse inside the UK economy. But I think the free money was sort of like papering over the cracks, at least as far as consumers were concerned, like in terms of what you were seeing.
It's probably not the best idea that we've ever had, where we have said to the Bank of England, if things ever get fucked up, you're only allowed to do one thing, and that's fuck with the interest rates. Now, whatever you do not fuck with the interest rates, and nothing bad will come of this, as we base the entirety of the economy after the 2008 crash around interest rates being like 1%.
Well, I mean, in that sense, it is super interesting that, like, especially in the last year, maybe the last 2 years, like now that this stuff matters again, and we have to talk about central banking, much like this podcast. It's like these meetings now, like the rate setting meetings every quarter, or I think they do. Yeah, they're every quarter now. Like they're sort of, it's like we're all waiting for like the high priests to come out in their robes and just say like, give their official sanction, or like just to come out and say your world is doomed. Essentially, like we've made these people more. I think they matter more to most people's daily lives than a lot of shit that's done in Westminster now, in terms of the material impact that it has. Like it's incredible.
As a big part of that is, government in this country loves just giving away all of the power it's ever held, like binding its own hands in stupid ways, like saying that the EU is responsible for why we can't, shoot every migrant who comes over here, and so on and so forth. So it's just another in a long line of self-flagellation that goes back to before 2008. To be fair,
sure,
yeah.
But it is like you look at a system that's like this now, right? Because case in point, like the NHS is already like straight. It's not news, but like lots of hospitals are already at like code black or something, even before the winter. It's weird to have a traditional winter crisis now in the NHS, but you know, it's sort of where we are. It starts popping up around the same time as War Christmas, and like we can't even do like the basic stuff anymore. So there was a bit in the Guardian yesterday that like the previous government, so like, I don't know, last week or whenever it was, under Truss promised like 500 million in emergency cash to get people like out of hospital beds and into care. So like these are people who they don't need medical care anymore. They just like need to recuperate. Yeah, they need to recuperate, or they need to be put into like a care home, for an old people home, some variety. But there's no beds there either. So they're like blocking 10% of all the beds. So, like, I think in case in point, like, again, we had like a decade of free money, and this is what we didn't do with it. Like, we didn't invest. Also, we didn't hire anybody.
Because we fundamentally believe that the state shouldn't do things unless doing things is bombing countries thousands of miles away and demonizing people in this country. Like, that's all the government is for. It's not for making things better for anyone except for a very small segment of society. So, no, you cannot have any more hospital beds, and no, you cannot have any more care homes and care workers or anything like that, because that might make things more tolerable here.
Yeah, it's a hospital, not a hotel.
I mean, like, we were talking a little bit as well, because I do think that, like, the government, in terms of what it still assigns itself as a role to do, is just, like, to get increasingly vicious and insane in all facets of the culture wars, like, to just be more that, essentially, because that's the only role they seem to still have allotted themselves, which is like an incredibly worrying sign to me.
I mean, ultimately, culture war is cheap.
Yeah, and the papers are getting annoyed now because the government is taking too much of their culture war and making it too explicit. I mean, I'm interested in this very obvious attempt to sort of oust Suella Braverman in the way that they're very obvious attempts to oust Matt Hancock or Boris Johnson or Liz Truss. And it does seem that it's Suella Braverman not respecting the division of labour between the press and the government, right? Which is like the press is the outrider for this stuff, and the government kind of reluctantly puts it through. And Suella Braverman, I think, is just making the whole kind of gig too obvious.
I mean, it does make a lot of sense for the government to be in a situation where there's the petulant second child saying that the bigger brothers had too long on the PlayStation.
Well, I mean, in her case, what I find incredibly interesting is like the thing that the papers are going after her for is not, you know, the incredible barbaric scenes of us having once again, and this is not new, this is like a decades-old thing, you know. I was reminded of the existence of David Blunkett today as well. But like,
condolences.
It's like the operation of concentration camps isn't really the problem. The real problem is that she used the wrong phone.
Yeah. But this is all they ever do. Look at fucking Johnson. Like, the entire attempt to oust him was he ate some cake. Not he killed thousands of people. Like, fuck it.
Let's all just take a quick reminder of what Labour are actually saying at the moment about Suella Braverman's agenda. Oh, what's this? She's not deporting enough people. Whoops.
She's not doing it cheaply enough. The Labour government under Keir Starmer, because they are a government in waiting, would bring in like ridiculous savings.
Yeah, we would use EasyJet to Rwanda rather than British Airways.
Speedy boarding for Rwanda deportees.
Jesus.
Fucking hell.
Don't lay that into existence. Yeah.
That's the bleakest fucking thing I've heard in a while. Jesus Christ. But yeah, it's like to briefly go back to like the material side of things. Like, well, I do think this is different if you're looking, like, if you divide eras, and I do think there's a case to be made to say that like, there was a pre and a post 2008. It's certainly the last like decades. And unlike the end of that era, like 2007, 2008, I think most households, at least this is borne out by the numbers as well, are just like significantly poorer and like massively more in debt. Again, because living standards haven't been rising and people's wages haven't been rising, but consumption needs to keep occurring. So how do you square that circle? And it's like, well, you just give people more debt. and the debt is incredibly cheap. So people have like a shit ton of credit card debt. Car loans are super interesting. Might do an episode on that one in the future. And it was a really good piece in the Financial Times by Sarah O'Connor that like essentially there has been no wage growth in the UK since the 2010s. Like everything's just been like flat essentially, which now you're getting into situations where like this was in the US, so it doesn't the comparison doesn't quite go, but I think it does in a lot of ways still. Is that like 51% of users of like Klarna like microloan payments, like quick repayment things, buy now pay later services, that 51% of their users said, I use these services to make necessary purchases, so shit like food. Not like I'll buy a dress and a nice pair of shoes. It's like I use this to buy food. So like we've now papered over, like we've now worked debt into like, I'm assuming rent as well, and food and you know, I wonder how long it's going to be until like British Gas has like a Klarna button this winter. I think that's not unrealistic at this point.
I mean, whenever I think about this particular, like the thread of the average person in British society, and how things for the average person, I'm not even talking about the people who are the very worst off. Like the average person has gotten worse and worse and worse over time, and I really am morbidly curious at what point something drastic happens, because there is going to come a point, and if nothing is fixed, and it doesn't look like anything will be in terms of the average person, what is the point? What is that point? How far do we have to go before something snaps?
So in my little, I mean, it's totally anecdotal and stuff, but my little window into like the average person or whatever, it's a boiled frog kind of thing that's happening. Like they've been told that the energy bills are going to be so fucking bad and it's all going to fall apart and everything's fucked. And then they've been paying a bit extra, and it turns out that the little bit extra they've been paying ends up sitting as a nice big fucking wad of credit in their account, because it's not taking that much, because they can't afford it at the moment. A year hence, let's see what happens, but at the moment they can't actually afford it, and they're looking at it and going, do you know what, this isn't actually too bad. Maybe it's all been a bit over-egged. And that's the way it's just going to go. It's going to be that kind of, well, I was told last time it wouldn't be so bad, so why would it be bad this time? And eventually it just turns into fucking background noise. And they keep doing this. Like, it's the same play. It was the same play done with COVID as well, where, you know, oh, well, actually, yeah, the cases are really, really bad. Everything's fucked. And then it was like, oh, actually, things aren't too bad. And that's fine, so it's fine, just don't worry about it, it's cool.
The tourists get saved from a winter energy crisis by incipient global warming.
Yeah.
You know, I was up north last week, like I was in like Burnley, and it was like 22 degrees in Burnley at the end of October, which is insane.
It's fucked
Yeah.
I think to a man on this podcast, we hate the heat. So
yeah, it's my enemy. I just yearn to destroy the sun.
In all its forms.
Yes, absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, like
as on earth as in heaven.
But like, you know, the forecast, the long range forecast, whether or not they're accurate or not, or statistic, as in the case of last week's article read, was like whether or not they're fully accurate or not. Like if there's like a real frost or a hard winter, like there was an interview with the head of the National Grid that said that they were under no illusion that like up to a quarter of all homes could experience what they called dire fuel poverty. Which I genuinely think is like the point where people can no longer afford to heat their homes or like eat warm meals and stuff. I mean, we're already weirdly, like we've made food banks already like a normal part of society, and now we're going to add warm banks to it. It just, I don't know, like it seems
that's another example of the whole boiled frog bit. It's just like food banks are just normal. So when people start saying, "Oh, I might need to, go to the food bank," or whatever, people will be like, All right, okay. Well, I suppose that makes sense. And it's just a sensible thing to do at that point. It's not like that's fucking tragic. It's just it's a natural part of society.
Well, one of the most heartbreaking things I read in the aftermath of the 2019 election, and I read a lot of heartbreaking things, was some people have been out canvassing and asked someone if they'd vote Labour, and they said no, like Jeremy Corbyn wants to take my food bank away. And yeah, people are just so sort of scared of losing these things that they shouldn't have to rely on, but they do. And it just shows you how sort of powerful, this like machine of manufacturing consent is. And I guess we'll come back to that, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so I think there has been, if you look back over like the last decade or so, like there have been attempts to answer some of these really like deep-seated systemic problems, but they've never been able to do anything like sensible or good because they were all based on like flawed logic. Austerity being the most obvious example of it. But I think, in terms of Brexit, I think it was partly a policy response or like a system response to like these problems building up. Leveling up was also a very clear one, but like that was sort of a weird reverse of austerity, also really shittily done and mainly giving money to councils instead of taking it away, but the wrong way. I think
it was also a crude weapon against Corbyn in the lead up to 2019.
Sure.
It's just another one of those. It's another one of those things where like, we're just going to report what the Tories say rather than what they do. So that's. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, whether or not like leveling up would have had Boris remained in place, had there not been Corona, if you built sort of a what if fantasy, I don't think the leveling up agenda, even properly funded, would have done much because it kept funneling money through like the same old systems that broke the thing in the first place. Like giving more money to your local councillor is just a way to get more luxury flats in your area. It's not a way to like get your library back. Like it doesn't. Britain is not geared for that, essentially. And I do think in its own way, like its own weird way, the 44, was it, days of the Truss experiment, because I can't hardly call it like being a prime minister, was another weird sort of attempt to sort of reverse some of these things, or like at least like get something new going, recognizing that what we have now is intolerable to a lot of people. Because it is interesting that like even the Tories have acknowledged that the current system is untenable, which is just really weird. And seeing how that like failed incredibly spectacularly, we're now seeing yet another response forming, I think. And as a side note, like all the responses to these systemic crises is needed faster than the previous one. Like we had a nice run between austerity and Brexit, but between Brexit and leveling up, it was shorter. Between leveling up and Truss, it was shorter. Now, like we are, the return back to what we're doing now, sort of the sort of throwing the mask off and really saying, well, we're just going to manage this sham democracy thing, is like happening even faster. So, much like the rate of crises goes faster and faster under capitalism, I think the rate of crisis response by new governments is also going to go faster and faster, which is, I don't think, a good sign either. It strikes me that like increasingly politics and economics as well are like building the bridge while they're trying to cross it, but also setting the bridge on fire behind them and hoping that the whole thing sort of keeps going up through essentially increasing applications of magic. It doesn't strike me as a very sustainable way to run a ship, but that's kind of what I'm trying to get at in basics. And like the thing that Juliet, you and I were talking about is in terms of the politics side of it. The basic thing now from the Westminster bubble or the establishment, or because it is both parties for sure, like, is to just insulate politics from voters as much and as far as humanly possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been thinking a lot lately about, after the end of the Corbyn period, I was quite involved with the Rebecca Long Bailey campaign. And, at the time I thought this probably isn't worth doing, we're not going to win. But having looked at the reaction to Liz Truss, I find it quite interesting to think of a sort of counter history where we managed to persuade people that, Starmer's promises are probably not going to hold true, shall we say, and we somehow managed to get Rebecca Long-Bailey elected, how long do we think she would have stayed like leader of the Labour Party before she basically just got like shithoused out of the post by, exactly the same sort of like constant like lying and wrecking campaigns that ultimately did for Corbyn?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I said, like the whole, I agree with you, Juliet, that like anything that happened post Corbyn that was in the same vein would have ended up with the same problem unless they did and were capable of doing the Stalinism that everybody was accusing them of anyway. And in that sense, I do find it interesting. I mean, I don't want to dwell too much about like the 10 pledges and like the hypocrisy of Starmer, because like that's kind of, it's shit.
It's table
and,
stakes,
yeah, it's table stakes to buy now. But like what I found really remarkable, especially in the now with Rishi Sunak, coming in, which was also endorsed by the Labour Party or like large quarters of the media, certainly. It was like, oh, the grownups are back in charge and this is good now. And the thing that came along with that, which was even more endorsed also by the Labour Party, was like, see, this is, when talking about trust, see, this is what happens when you let the membership decide. Because they kept drawing those parallels between Corbyn and Truss, saying, we shouldn't have democracy, or like not party democracy, at least, Yeah. Because like these...
And traditionally what you're told is, look, if you don't like the political circumstances under which you live, you don't riot, you don't use any kind of violence, you put together a political party, or you pick the person you want to lead a political party to represent you, and you get involved with that movement in the sort of, the terms that it's offered to you. And, with Corbyn, we've had a very dispiriting case study of what will be done to you by the media political complex if you try and do that.
Yeah.
And then the possibility of it gets just taken away entirely. The PLP, the Labour Party, basically have a veto now on who can be put forward for election of party leader, which, I mean, they always have, but now the threshold is far higher and far more difficult to clear. And we're also seeing, for example, like Nadia Whittome. Did she have the whip taken away, or was she just disciplined for basically saying...
I think it was only she had to delete the tweet but didn't have to formally apologise, which is a very light touch from
they were talking
about
they were talking about removing the whip though, weren't they?
But very heavy-handed punishment for Nadia Whittome, saying, look, Rishi Sunak isn't necessarily a victory for like British Asian representation, because as a someone who's worth such an astronomical amount of money, he's not representative of the community in general. So you see the sort of direction of travel there, like Emma Dent Code being not allowed to stand in Kensington again over, I can't even remember what the pretext was, or something absolutely trivial. Piece in the Guardian.
It was, I think, liking a post by Caroline Lucas or something.
No, it was Nicola Sturgeon, wasn't it? Nicola Sturgeon had done a tweet where she said she didn't have COVID. Liking that tweet was providing like fucking tangible support to an enemy faction or some bullshit.
Yeah, and I mean there was a piece in the Guardian today, and the Guardian are allowing this criticism to be aired. That's interesting because they don't often. But a guy called Maurice McLeod, who stood for selection somewhere and had been kept off the ballot on, I think it was somewhere in South London, replacing Harriet Harman. I forget which constituency. It might be like Camberwell and Peckham. But basically, not just the top of the party stitching up the leadership elections, but the MP selections also being like stitched up so that you can't hope that your MPs will represent you by nominating a left candidate. And in a sense, 'twas ever thus. Obviously famously like the Labour, like Falkirk Review in 2014, changed the electoral rules to one member, one vote, precisely because they thought they had the membership in the bag. They thought they had consensus for their politics. And then when, Corbyn came along, provided a pretty big illustration that actually nobody wanted or liked their politics. In the classic sense of like a regime that liberalises and then, realises that that's going to be its own downfall. They're like, oh shit, backtrack, wait, change it back.
Yeah. There was in this context, there was a remarkable piece. I'm sure nobody read it but me, because I'm me. There was a piece in the Times this week by William Hague, of all people, noted election winner.
14 pints a day, William Hague. Yeah.
And his argument was, he was mainly talking about that it was actually good the way that Sunak got into office, because. If his argument was, if you leave the politics to the Tory membership, that would be bad because we've just had Truss. And I was reminded also, because he wrote it in the article, which is incredibly funny in its own way, that the Tory plan in '97 under his leadership was to have 1 million members by now. But instead, they have too few members, and those that are still in the club are too driven by social media / their phones and are demanding the unrealistic. So in case of Truss, it was libertarianomics. But you could draw the parallel with the establishment voice saying about Corbyn.
Tories.
People just be having too many opinions.
Yeah, Tories always be on their phones. Yeah,
they don't listen. They don't listen when their betters tell them how to think.
That's the problem with old people these days. They're just, always on their phones.
Let me quote you a little bit, because, again, you could apply pretty much this to the current Labour Party as well. Many activists will not like the idea of losing their vote. Ultimately, however, they subscribe to a party because they wanted to succeed and be part of a healthy democracy. That now requires the choice of the...
Oh my God.
I want to be on the red team.
That now requires returning the choice of party leader to the MPs. So you're just supposed to be a member of the party because you love democracy and you want your red or blue team to succeed. You don't want to actually have anything actively to do with it, and furthermore, you shouldn't have anything.
It's that these fuckers look across the Atlantic, they see the complete fucking grift it is to be a grandee in a big party where there's a choice of two of the cunts, and they think, oh, that'd be so good if I could have that much fucking money. That's all it is. The electoral system here doesn't even work like that, but they think it would be fucking great if it did.
I mean, in the Americans, it's even weirder because, you have but in America, you would at least have primaries.
But yeah, open primaries is just it was I swear, a perpetual news cycle of trying to get open selections is tantamount to trying to get Stalin himself to stand for the party. While Corbyn was leader, it's just fucking ludicrous. It is funny the ways in which America is intensely undemocratic, but also bizarrely much more democratic than especially the Labour Party. I mean, the Conservative Party was arguably, before we had this literal demonstration of what democracy actually meant to to members in the Tory Party, the Tory Party being more democratic because the members actually get to fucking vote directly. So fucking funny to me.
But
there is democracy in the West. It has just been partitioned out, and everyone in the West gets a little bit of it.
Yeah, and
it is.
Look, America is, in lots of senses, more democratic than Britain, right? I mean, they have an elected head of state, and they have an elected second chamber, don't they?
Yep.
Yes, senators.
Which neither
with
of which
their own intrinsic problems, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely, but neither of which we have or are close to having.
Yeah, I mean, but let me just quote you one more line from the William Hague thing, because I found it so indicative of this the current system reacting, to yet another in a long series of crises by saying, okay, the thing that we need now is to have the adults back in charge. The greatest lesson here is that increasing the numbers involved in a particular decision is not always the way to create a stronger democracy. So you see less people.
Incredible.
Okay, mate.
I'm gonna admire this lad's glorious brain.
You'll have to take the baseball cap off first, but yeah.
This dude's brain is too hard boiled for that shit.
I do think this is the current response is we've seen Corbyn, we've seen Truss. The most important thing, this is what I think the political system response is going to be, because they're going to do two things, I think. Like, the first is to say you can have the show of democracy. You can turn up to vote for your red team or your blue team. But what those two teams actually get up to and how they form their decisions and whether or not they produce outcomes that you want, you know, in relation to the first part that we were talking about, like an economy that is going to hell, privatized everything. You know, we haven't even talked about climate change, but obviously that's like a huge part of it. And it's like, but the most important thing now is the adults are back in charge, right? And there's a clear separation being made between the adults, the sensibles in Parliament, the leaders, the establishment on the one side, and the rabble, the children outside the gates, who must like get the occasional wowie pop, but not really be involved in democratic precision like processes. And
probably the first time Parliament's tried to keep children out, but you know.
So, you know, I mean, Starmer is, you know, you can say what you like about Starmer, but he was elected democratically on a mandate that he then fucked over. But he has some kind of democratic mandate, at least.
I will say as well, it's a very bold choice for you there to tell me that I can say what I like about Starmer.
And then Sunak's got the same fucking coverage. I just posted in our group chat the new cover of the latest Economist, which is a picture of Rishi Sunak with reasons to be cheerful on it, which is like, if nothing else, that's you know,
Ed Miliband melted.
Posted from the lead singer of 1980s like indie group The Wolfhounds. I know that guy.
But I mean, it is incredible that like we seem to be once again heading back to like a sort of, they seem to be grasping, and the Starmer project's very explicit about it, but I think the Sunak thing is similar. They seem to be sort of grasping back to a time where they're both saying, well, we want to do nice things, but we can't. Why can't we do nice things? Well, because the guys in the robes in the back of England tell us we can't, and the other guys in the robes, the market, also tells us that we can't. So
and also
now,
it's your fault. Yeah.
Yes. Because I'm wondering how long it's going to take for people, especially with Rishi fucking Sunak in charge, for them to sort of go, well, you had it too good during lockdown. And then to make that...
Find out in 2 weeks, won't we?
Yeah. No, but whether or not that will be an explicit narrative, because I was once again trying to remember the eat out to help out thing, and whether or not they'll try to dissociate Sunak from that when they say, you've had it too good, you must, you know... You must make savings, you know, like it's back up to you essentially.
No, I think they'll tout that as like that was a really good idea at the time and it was great, and now we've got another really good idea. Have you considered just not eating now?
Yeah, but this is where I want to come back to like what we were talking about a little bit earlier. It's like, I don't think, I mean, we'll see, and they'll try for sure, but like I don't know how much blood is left to squeeze out of like the poorest people in UK society. So, but I think physically,
people were saying this like in 2015. I mean, I remember an astonishing op-ed in I think it was the Telegraph or maybe the Times saying, "Is there going to be a middle class revolt because there's nothing left to squeeze from the working classes now?" And that was what, like 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But again, like I think some of those cracks were sort of slightly papered over a bit with like the free money thing,
and there were more democratic pressure points as well. And you know, I do wonder what's going to happen with the closing of all of them. I often think back to, I think on the Thursday after Grenfell, there was a big protest in London. Which I went to, and people were obviously absolutely furious. But I think the thing that stopped that turning into a full-on riot was the fact that, you know, Emma Dent-Coad had just been elected in Kensington on, you know, as a sort of fairly radical housing activist, as part of an election where Labour on a sort of left ticket had, you know, done very well and looked at that point likely that it would form the next government. And I wonder what the response to something like that would be now. And I think something like that is coming again.
Yeah.
I'm slightly surprised something like that hasn't been happening more often, really.
Yeah, I mean, this
is the phrase that a riot is delivering on the protest promise.
Yeah, I mean, I and that for me, like, I think that's like, if you look at where we're heading into, like a winter that if it turns really cold will like genuinely start like either killing people or discomforting them in to very severe degrees. The Bank of England, the US Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank all saying, yeah, we are deliberately doing a recession because there's inflation, and they fundamentally misunderstand, at least to me, its causes, but they know its effects. And it's just like, and I wonder like whether or not, like how much of the lower end of the middle classes in the UK they're going to have to throw under the bus to like keep the system going. Because like the spectacle with migration and what's been happening this week is gross and dehumanizing beyond all belief. But like, you can't, once the light starts going out and people start losing their homes because the interest rates on the mortgage rises, I wonder whether or not, yeah, Juliet, like you were saying, because that pressure, I do think that there's a material pressure, but I wonder where and how that's going to find an outlet, because it's got to go somewhere.
Yeah, and lots of the Corbyn movement
too.
Oh, here comes the Lib Dem battle bus. Yeah,
I feel like all this Albanian criminals shit that is being dredged out of the most disgusting ditch in the country that's been put in the papers, and Joe Coburn trying to goad I can't remember, some Labour MP into saying that there was an invasion on the southern coast of the country is just trying to lay the groundwork for, it's not our fault, it's because of all these people coming over on boats, and just trying to set up more. Again, like I said earlier, culture war is cheap.
Do you remember when David Cameron used the word swarm? And everyone lost their fucking minds over that. And now it's an invasion, and we're all like, And you've just got that guy who counts fucking migrants for a living.
Oh, the
fucking BBC as well. As any of the others, yeah.
Simon something, is it?
Simon Jones.
Yeah. Fucking standing on the coast of Kent with a little armband on and a fucking set of binoculars. But then they also did this again. I was briefly reminded, sadly, of the existence of David Blunkett. Like, they did the same thing in the 2000s, and I wonder. I don't know. Like, I'm tempted to be pessimistic, but like, I wonder if like hating migrants and like turning up the dial even more on like trans issues is like going to cut it when people are. When the lower end of the middle classes start being materially impacted in a way that they haven't been before. I don't I don't know how many people you can impoverish on the one hand and then feed them culture wars on the other. Like, I don't know if you can. I genuinely have no idea how long you can do that for.
Well, I guess we'll fucking find out, won't we?
Well, exactly.
But to briefly, before we close this bit off, in a sort of rare and momentary ray of optimism, at least, what I do think is interesting and sort of indicative that I think that this is a system that is not at all at ease with itself. Also, if you see like the ever increasing powers to the police to stop demonstrations and all that stuff, is like is the fact that they still keep like kicking the corpse of Jeremy Corbyn's political project. Like, they can't stop. I think there is, apart from that, I think for some people it's just a reflex, right? After 4 years of doing that, they literally, it's muscle memory.
They have to. They are. It was the, like, it is one of the few things that actually threatened. I mean, like, fucking liberals like to talk about how, Brexit was this big disruption, when it's not in the broad sense of, like, people living their day-to-day lives and, like, the elites who actually wield the power. But, like, Jeremy Corbyn was a threat to all, like, to the people that mattered, so to speak. So, yeah, like, of course they're mortally afraid that someone who represented anything even approaching the fucking Demos's will, then, yeah.
This is it. This is something I've always found really interesting about the response to Corbyn and Corbynism, right? Was there were two main strands, And one was sort of rebalancing the economy with renationalisation of key industries as like a big part of that. And the other was democratisation, right? And the first one, the renationalisation, especially when the 2017 manifesto was leaked, lots of people that we would think of as like policing the left edge of the discourse, at David Miliband, essentially, didn't really mind that. They could sort of imagine how that would operate with their people in charge. But the idea of just democratising anything just, scared the hell out of them. And a lot of the most shrieking responses to Corbyn were, when he suggested like democratising the BBC and other parts of the media, or, I think the sort of emblematic media comment from
even businesses, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Just regular businesses.
One of the most emblematic media comments from one of my former editors was the phrase, "Don't encourage them, Jeremy."
Yeah.
Everyone
has a novel in them or something.
Yeah, exactly. The speech at the Libertines gig where he talks about everyone having a play or a poem or, a song in them or whatever. The democratisation was the thing that really caused the horror. And I think it's not that we're not going to be allowed to move away from the neoliberal model at all. It's just that we're not going to be allowed to do it on terms that they don't set.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the crucial thing, I think. And I think if you think of everything in British politics over the last 5 years now, basically being an effort to make sure that nothing like the 2017 election ever happens again, stuff makes a lot more sense.
Entire country tries to put toothpaste back in tube.
Yes. And then pretend toothpaste never existed. Yeah.
I'm not brushing my teeth now out of spite.
But I mean, I do think that like there is definitely that impulse, but I think the strength with which it is still done does signal to me that like these people, despite their every last effort to like nail the door shut, keep everything separated, make politics about sad things that they have to do responsibly. The Tories will do it with glee, and Labour will do it with a sad face emoji, but they'll do the exact same thing. I do think that they.
I don't even think that's true at this point.
They do fear.
I'm pretty sure at this point Labour just hides the erection. That's the only difference.
That's what the fig leaf is covering.
And I mean,
but Matt Hancock's lost the whip. I mean,
yeah. I don't want to be like overly optimistic anyway on this podcast, although I don't think I've ever been credibly accused of that on this podcast. Is to say like I don't think necessarily.
It's a matter of degrees.
I mean, there's been a bunch of times when you've said we'll get that episode out by Thursday.
But I mean, on the other hand, I can also see, especially now, like sort of the incipient beginnings of the same thing, but on the right. Like if you can see Nigel Farage is already doing it, right? He's just saying, "Oh, the globalists have taken over the Conservative Party," and like you can get this from the right as well. This anti response to everything just being so battened down. So like I'm not 100% optimistic that if there is a sort of pressure valve release in a different kind of politics, that it needs to necessarily redound to the left of the spectrum, to anything that we would agree with. So like, I don't know, but like everything seems so fucking weird right now. And I know I've said it before on Twitter and stuff, but like, it seems like such a Versailles moment at the moment. Like, I don't know, maybe Juliet, maybe I'm wrong, but like the gap between like the government and the governed seems larger now than in the UK than I've seen it in I don't fucking know how long anymore. Like I can't,
Yeah, I mean, I do think that's true, and I'm really, the only pressure valve for this to have any expression now is a general election. And I have a very strong suspicion that, already like the ludicrous polls that were coming out a few weeks ago when the Truss experiment was, kind of tanking, they're starting to sort of shift back to a bit close to where you'd expect them to be. But I get the feeling that the next election is going to be marked a lot by huge apathy in sort of suburban and rural parts of the country and absolute fury in the more politically engaged kind of cities. And it's easy to imagine that, because of the way, sort of the left and liberals are sort of both forced to like essentially work through the Labour Party, you can easily imagine Starmer's Labour, much more than Sunak's Tories, becoming the recipient of that anger in the same way that like Joe Swinson's Liberal Democrats, sponsored by Joe Swinson, became the sort of recipient for a lot of anger about austerity when they were trying to put the narrative onto Brexit in 2019. You can easily see that election just kind of blowing up in that way, and again producing maybe a quite unexpected outcome. But
I do think it is fun to imagine, because I think it's pretty much common knowledge that campaigning is Corbyn's bread and butter. It was like it's what he does, and like hence the 2017 election. Big part of why the 2017 election got sort of almost turned on its head. But like the flip side of that being Keir Starmer going out on the campaign trail,
oh my God,
meeting people. Meeting humans with 2 hands, 2 feet, 1 head, no nukes attached anywhere.
Well, I call it the Swinson effect.
Actual legs.
Yeah, human legs.
But I call it the Swinson effect, and like the Swinson effect is when
100%.
Guardian columnists, like let's call them someone like Polly T. No, that's too obvious. But there's a certain type of kind of mainstream columnist who will just say, look, this is a sensible grown-up politician, this is what everybody wants. And then they go out and meet actual human beings who detest them. So, and I think, the Swinson effect is as good a term for any of that. And I think the Swinson effect is going to be very strong in Keir Starmer, but also Rachel Reeves and Lisa Nandy and Wes Streeting and Yvette Cooper. All of them. They're all terrible.
They're all awful. I don't understand this. He did it last week. Wes Streeting was like, the thing that we're going to do, our brave new offer in like terms of social care, is to like give people who are registered carers or whatever a pass for free parking. And I'm like, that's the thick of it. That's literally a line from one of the last episodes that they trot out when they really have nothing left to say, and they're all about to like be set on fire in an inquiry, essentially. Like it's fucking incredible that this is still a going concern. Like I'm just still genuinely baffled by it. Like that's
and car parks.
Yeah. It's not we'll get rid of hospital car park charges. That's too radical. It's like if you're a registered carer,
you can't means test that.
No, that's true. Whereas that's.
I mean, it's a fucking cargo cult in an era where there are no planes, right?
Yeah. So yeah, now that we've hopefully made everybody incredibly optimistic for the future, but I do think there is optimism to be had, and I think if you're looking at like what the trade union movement is doing at the moment, like that's probably a really good sign. I don't know if they'll win. I do know that like it's not going to come from any currently organized major political party. There are other options are available. I know, James, you'll be listening to this episode, so I don't want to pretend there's nothing out there. But maybe it's in there, and maybe it can sort of join up with this sort of pressure valve release that we've been talking about earlier. Anyway, to wrap this up, I was listening back to a little bit at the end of episode 102, which we recorded in October of last year. We sort of started that. Yeah, exactly. So we called that the start of season 3. Because we'd all come back from a brief holiday, and it was about an eco yacht. And interestingly, we read an article where like some minister of state was pleading for basically Elon Musk to take over world government because they'd run out of ideas. And I think if anything has changed, I don't think they would ask for that anymore. So like, I don't think people would say, oh, we need a Mark Zuckerberg or an Elon Musk, or like we need a Steve Jobs to like come fix this with technology whiz bangs. Like we've even come past that point. So, with that said, I think what I'd like to say is welcome to Podcasting This Practice Season 4. I don't really have a title for this yet, but
we're somehow grittier and darker and even more full of whimsy than we were before.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
We've replaced Superman with that dipshit from Moonfall.
And also, we are inexplicably 3 hours long for some reason.
Yeah, so maybe like now is the winter of our discontent or something. I'm just spitballing here, but I think last year when we said the protagonist of history was the poster, but I'm not sure if that's going to hold up anymore under the new reigns of Twitter.
The webmaster.
If the last protagonist of history was the poster, maybe it still is, but maybe you should just like join a union if you haven't, and join Acorn if you haven't, and like try to manufacture some kind of society when it gets really fucking cold outside.
Liz Truss said it was the podcaster, but she's dead now, so I don't know what to think.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. We can all still be members of the anti-growth coalition. God, those heady days. Anyway, to round out this episode, we haven't done it in a while, but I thought, Juliet, you're here, and everybody's got to experience it sometimes. Shall we play a brief round of comment or commentariat?
I would absolutely love to, Rob.
All right, round one. It's basically for the metaphor, this one, because I just love it. However, too many immigrants have not integrated, leading to ethnic, religious, and cultural divisions that blight our cities and towns. These divisions make Britain look more like a salad bowl than a melting pot.
Jesus. I mean, before that last sentence, I'd have said nailed on commentariat. So I'm going to say commentariat.
Yeah,
but it would be libelous to say which commentariat, I think, so I won't.
Yeah, commentariat. I mean, whoever wrote that is so proud of themselves. But, like, who cares if Britain looks... I mean, like, you don't look at a salad and go, Jesus, that's fucking disgusting. Why is that not all, like, blended into a homogeneous paste? It's not the point of a salad, like.
Yeah, commentariat. Let's go.
You are correct. It is Joe Barron writing for Conservative Woman.
Oh my God!
For fuck's sake.
I'm going to take that fucking website off you.
You will
can have it back when you've been
dead hands.
Yeah. Sneak into your Swiss castle and install like parental blocking software on your fucking PC.
All right, let's return to more familiar fare, baby. If today's youth were landed on Normandy beaches in 1945...
Oh, my fucking Christ on fire.
Grow up.
This is commentary.
Yeah.
It is questionable just how much use they would be. Their first job would be calling employment lawyers to sue for distress and emotional turmoil.
Oh,
That's Richard Littlejohn in the Daily Mail, I reckon.
it's someone that needs to get...
Better opinions.
Yeah.
It's Keir Starmer's favourite interviewer. It's Nick Ferrari writing for The Express.
Ooh.
Oh, right. Imagine dropping that cunt on Normandy Beach.
No way of knowing without a controlled experiment.
Yeah. I think every time some journalist writes about like, oh, you dropped today's kids on Normandy Beach, they should have to fight today's kids on Normandy Beach.
Would you rather fight 100 Nick Ferrari-sized kids or like...
Round 3. Both Sunak and Truss have been a considerable improvement on Johnson. At least they shall...
Commentariat.
Yeah.
Yeah, commentariat.
Either commentariat or like Mike Galsworthy on Twitter.
I'm going to say the Telegraph trying to repair its reputation.
No, it's a comment in The Guardian.
Oh.
To be fair, the rest of it was, with Johnson, we were forced to experience the disaster with him in full view, front and centre, gurning inanely, talking gibberish, and incessantly sowing his lies.
Do you know what really fucks me off is when we talk about the mannerisms of the politician, which basically don't fucking matter. It's the fucking policies that they do. Like,
yeah, but Alistair, we had to pay attention. Don't want to pay attention. I'm comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, this is the crux of it, really, isn't it? We've had we had like 4 years of the media having and like dinner party circles having to pay attention to politics because of certain elements on the left, and now that we've finally managed to bridge the issues with the left and the issues with the right with Reed Johnson, we can now go back to just not caring about how the proles are living their lives. Yeah. Cool.
The thing with Johnson was he was like he was considered to be doing a good job by the people who kept him in power, and that really infuriated all the people who blamed him for Brexit. Whereas with Truss, like the entire world was pointing and laughing, so it was okay to point and laugh at her. You know? Yeah, because she was clearly doomed. She was like going down in her plane had one wing from the start, you know. And whereas with Johnson, he was staying in the job, and that was embarrassing. Whereas Truss, it was like, well, yeah, she's shit and she's like an embarrassment, but everyone in the nation realizes that, so it's okay. Like the system works because like Truss only kept the job for like 4 weeks or whatever.
All right, round 4. But then again, Tom Watson's Labour, which, as long as you're on the left, means never having to say you're sorry for anything, however heinous, because it's accepted without question that you're fundamentally a good person. No, wait for the kicker.
Is this Tom Watson?
No, wait for the kicker. Not so if you have the misfortune to be a Tory. Witness how the pack is hunting down Home Secretary Suella Braverman.
I mean, I'm sorry, you know literally nothing of, and I use this word advisedly, left politics if you don't understand that how internecine beef is like bread and butter. Like, I wake up every day hating David for the fucking eggs in the microwave shit, and they don't understand that whatsoever.
I mean, how much attention are you fucking paying if you think like the Labour left are all united in one happy church under Tom fucking Watson? Like, literally, like one of the like 2 remaining like vaguely left commentators in British politics got sacked from the fucking Guardian for criticising Tom Watson.
This is beyond a child's understanding of politics. This might actually be like a puppet from children's television.
So it's going to have to be commentariat. Is it Matt Ford in Unheard?
Ford's, yeah.
Is it the Badger from Bodger and Badger? Like, writing in the Times.
So if it's like sort of beyond and also beneath a child's understanding of politics, it is
commentariat.
There's only but there's only a few people who
Brendan
fit
O'Neill.
that. No.
I'm going to say. Can I narrow it down to Unheard? Is it in Unheard?
No, it is. It is in a.
Is it
printed
Bastani again?
No, it's Richard Littlejohn writing in the Mail.
Oh, I got the right columnist, but just for the wrong column. Yeah.
Now this is something. The last round is something I had honestly not seen in like commentariat circles in or internet writing in like a long time.
So it's commentariat then.
Maybe it's a head fake. Yes, they
commentariat.
Yes, they did call me darling and love, and it did occasionally get a little bit too much of a whiff of their beery breath. But I knew how to look after myself, and besides, their bark was much worse than their bite. Truth is, without them and their weaknesses for a young thing in a short skirt, I'd probably still be working as a sales assistant. It was, as far as I was concerned, a very good trade-off.
Is this sexism is good, actually?
Mm-hmm.
Is this what's happening right now? Okay.
I reckon that's comment. Yeah, I'm going to go with comment for that one.
I'm going to say commentariat because Rob gave it away at the start.
Alistair?
I feel like I need to try and guess who said it where.
That's not the game.
Is this Alison Pearson in the Telegraph?
No, it's the other one.
It is Mail.
No, it's Sarah. It's Sarah Vine in the Daily Mail.
Oh right!
Oh my god!
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
Elon Musk's trying to bring her back.
If only she were only 10 seconds long.
Yeah.
This by the way is part of an article about Meghan Markle, of course, because
for fuck's sake,
why would it not be? Obviously.
Anyway, I think that will do us for yet another episode of Podcasting is Praxis. Juliet, thank you so very much for agreeing to come on this this happy recording with happy analysis. Is there anything you want to plug? At the
Is there anything I want to plug? I mean, I've written some books. Like, buy those. There's one called Variations, collection of short stories. That's my favourite of them. Yeah, read that. Otherwise, no.
There's some nice articles in The Guardians that you've written.
Yeah, a while ago now.
Read The Guardian in incognito mode.
Yeah, stick an ad block on and check those articles out.
Or ideally from like a Tor browser or something.
No, just read it in your regular browser and laugh as it counts how many articles you've not paid them for at the bottom of the page.
Yeah.
Exactly. And once we take control of The Apprentice, that shit's going to be right out. Anyway, so for us, please, David, can you do the plugs? Because otherwise I'm going to fuck it up right at the end.
Yeah, all right. You can join us on the Patreon. It's patreon.com/praxiscast. It is £5 a month. You'll get an extra episode. We're going to up that soon. You also get Discord access. You can follow us on Twitter, which is @praxiscast, and our ats will be in the show notes. You should also check us out on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/praxiscast. We stream on Wednesdays sometimes and Thursdays sometimes. Check the Twitter aforementioned and you'll find out whether or not we're actually going to be live.
Yeah, usually about 5 minutes before we are.
Yeah, usually, yeah. So you do get warning. You can't be told that you will.
There's no need to subtweet me on the show.
So the lesson is, if you want to follow us on Twitch, never log off.
Yeah. And you can buy merch at praxiscast.tmill.com as well. We should go there to get merch. And yeah, that's us. That'll do us. I will probably be back proper in the next couple of weeks.
Please.
And, yeah. No. We'll see you later.
All right. Yeah. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Cheers, everyone.
Ta-ra.
Bye.